Welcome back to the Goat Marketing Show. I'm Nithya Manny, and I have Doug Foley with me.
Hey, everybody.
And this week, we're going to do things a bit differently. So today, we're going to take a look at, our first look actually, at what goes on behind the scenes of the Goat Marketing Show. Now, you might be wondering why we're showcasing behind the scenes of a show we just started, but there's good reason for that. We built this show not only to provide value to our viewers, but also to show you how simple it is to create an authority platform and where to start.
I think a lot of people get really stuck when it comes to creating a show, or they don't know where to start, or they might even have imposter syndrome. So hopefully today we can break that down for you and help you get started.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it then.
I'm really excited for this because so many of our clients, so many people have reached out to me to ask, how do you actually start a podcast? And that was kind of the whole reason we created the show, was to give people a look at the ways, the tools, the ideas. And today I thought it would be really helpful, instead of doing an episode on some of the disciplines, just talking through our process of how we brainstorming. Mainly because the biggest piece I find, once people say, yeah, I'm in, I'm going to do this, they don't know what to talk about. So I just wanted to reach out to you and walk through our brainstorming process. You ready?
Let's roll.
Okay, perfect. So when it comes to the ideas, one of the things that I'm really fortunate to have is being able to bounce the ideas off Nithya. She created a really good brainstorming sheet that allows us to dive in, and we'll come back and update this post. We'll also have a blog post that accompanies this episode. But one of the things I think most people need to start with is just those frequently asked questions. Like the things that people come to them and say, hey, I've seen you've done this, much like we're doing with this show and creating a podcast. Walk us through how we went from that initial list into distilling it down to episodes.
It really starts with figuring out, who are you talking to? Who's your audience? What do they come to you for? Like, what knowledge do you have that they're looking for? So once you really identify who your audience is, it helps you create more intentional content. It allows you to have an idea of what kind of content you should create and what you want your viewers to be able to grab from that. So that's really where we started. Figuring out who our ideal viewer is and what we wanted to offer through our channel to our viewers.
And that was a big thing. And I will say, after doing a couple episodes on my own, having somebody to ask you questions, whether that's a spouse, a business partner, I think going through this time with you, it was a lot easier to help refine an idea, because you were able to push and say, well, tell me more about that. And I think a lot of people will take for granted what they know, what they've experienced, or things that they've done. And that's really the beauty to me in any type of podcast, where you can share either experiences, knowledge, the combination of the two to accomplish something. The second, I would say, is format. Like figuring out whether you're going to interview somebody or not. But before we dive into that, the one thing I really want to push on is dealing with imposter syndrome. Like even before we hit live, we're like, eeh! Because I know when we first started, I mean, I think it's the first podcast you'd really done or been on.
Definitely.
But let's talk through that. We're on episode, I think this is the 4th one we've recorded. So maybe dive into that process a little bit and how to move past it.
Yeah, I guess. So Doug's not new to this. He has his own podcast. He's 2 different podcasts. Like, he's quite familiar with this, also with public speaking. So I am more familiar with being behind a camera. So this is kind of out of my comfort zone. And I think the confidence that Doug has given me, and just by pushing me out of my comfort zone and really like saying, no, we're just doing this. Like, you have the equipment, you know the stuff, like, just show up and talk. It's coming from you. We want to hear from your experience, and just knowing that you have something unique to offer, and just owning that and showing up, and you're really just talking to a computer screen. So yeah, you have something unique and relevant to share. And I think just believing that helps you show up, even though I get nervous every time.
I still get nervous doing this. I think this is probably it's well over 200 episodes that I've recorded. But so the one thing I really want to make sure people can take away from today is how to actually do some of the brainstorming. What do you do? Because we've flushed out the brainstorming worksheet a few different ways. What have you found has made it helpful to put the ideas together for an episode? Or what are things you've learned as we've come through the process that makes brainstorming a little easier?
Thinking in terms of relevancy. So once you know who your ideal viewers are, who you're creating content for, you start to wonder, like you said, what are the frequently asked questions? What are problems that they're dealing with currently? What's going on in the market right now? What are things that people are trying to get a grasp of? And how can you help with that? I think starting from looking at it from that stance, I think that really helped us shape our content. And a lot of the perspective that we were taking is, what do our clients come to us for? So we're trying to help create a knowledge base for them to access, and for anyone else to access that is trying to create an authority platform or anything of that nature.
That's awesome. Now, from the production side, I know a lot of people think SEO, like how do I optimize it? How do you then bridge the gap once we lock in an idea and say, okay, this is what we're going to focus on? How do we then go from that idea to making sure that it's optimized and has the best potential to reach the intended audience?
So we use a couple different softwares like TubeBuddy, and once we come up with some content ideas, we use those tools to make sure they're highly searchable. They have a good rating in terms of being discoverable. And that's where we get to be creative. We get to try different ways of framing the content that we're trying to create. So that's one way that we use software in terms of SEO. And then just making sure we utilize the full potential of a platform like YouTube that lets you tag multiple tags, making sure that anyone that's searching for our video will be able to find it, or content that we're providing will be able to find it.
That's awesome. You mentioned something previously when you were talking about relevancy. And I think one of the things that'll help people is just having a notepad, or even just using, the notes section on your phone, or whether it's Slack, Teams, whatever channel you use as a team, always be looking for ideas. If you remember, the whole purpose, I think, of a podcast or a YouTube channel is to be conversational. Like, it's your top of funnel, generally speaking, from the marketing perspective. So you're trying to stimulate some conversations. So just be more self-aware to think about topics that are going to start a conversation with somebody. So having that notepad, or just the self-awareness. So for example, today we were trying to figure out, how do we create episode number 4? We have a really good episode just breaking down all the things Ryan Reynolds accomplished. Secretly, it's just the way I want to go meet him. So we're going to talk about him a lot because it's worth it. He's done a lot of marketing.
You'll find us eventually.
Yes. I mean, I think he and I look a lot alike. So just kidding. But the most important thing is just be open to understand what's topical. What are the things that your audience needs to hear from? So for this episode, we said, a lot of this we can just show the work and the behind the scenes of what we're building. And it's one of the 3 themes we're going to focus on, is just taking a peek behind the curtain and look at how some of these shows are built, where we're going, what we struggle with. And sometimes it's hard to come up with a show week after week. So just talking about the process itself can be very helpful.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing here. So this is the first peek at behind the scenes, and we just really want to focus on content, because that's really the from the ground up, that's where you start. What are you trying to talk about? What value are you bringing to people? Who are your audience? And then once you have the content piece, then you're motoring from there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everybody, on this first ever live. We got a lot more coming to you throughout the year. Just leave the comments below if you have any questions or things you want to see more about. And of course, follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and wherever else you see us. We are here to help you along with this journey. Take care, everybody.